When it comes to growing a business, what we often find is that as business owners, we can be our own worst enemies.
You can make an excuse to not get up in the morning, to not post the content, to not write the blog post or shoot the podcast or shoot the YouTube video. It's so easy to stay comfortable. But the reality is nothing happens in comfort.
You have to realize you are going to make mistakes, and you are going to get your butt kicked, and it is going to be painful. But the reality is that you only lose if you give up.
The people who grow the most in business, who achieve the most in business, are the ones who welcome the discomfort.
Don't get to the point where you look back at your life and say what could have been if it weren't for me and my nonsense and my baggage and my BS. There's no bigger regret of that big what if.
It sucks to be uncomfortable, but you know what sucks more? It sucks to not have a business.
And so today's episode, we're going to talk about all of the mindset stuff, all the excuses, all the doubts that we all go through. And we're going to break them all down, debunk them, and empower you to move forward and not have those things lingering and slowing your business growth. Let's get started.
What's up, familia? It's Kim
and Chris.
And you're listening to the Business Lounge podcast.
In each episode, we'll break down all the latest in online marketing, give you all the deets on what's working now to turn your content into customers, boost your leads and sales, and scale your business fast.
All without compromising on what you care about most: faith, family, and freedom. And listen, it's all real, raw, and unfiltered. So let's start the show. Welcome back to the Business Lounge podcast. I'm your co-host, Kim Jimenez. I'm here with Chris. And man, this is a topic that is long overdue for us to talk about. Yeah. I feel like, Chris, I'm early on in my career. I'm like the queen of excuses.
Were you?
The queen of maybe not excuses, but definitely of self-doubt.
Yes.
Right? The queen of doubt, for sure.
I don't remember excuses. I remember some doubt.
You don't remember excuses?
No.
It's not in my blood as a Hispanic.
She's Puerto Rican.
No, but really, the doubts were so freaking strong. I mean, the imposter syndrome almost completely halted my entire journey. Yeah. I don't think I would be here if it wasn't for amazing mentors, amazing coaches, a supportive family. But this guy specifically, guys, for real, you saw something in me that I could not see for years. And you just kept relentlessly encouraging me and being patient with my self-doubt and course correcting and be like, nope, you can do this. And that was so impactful. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
But I don't know, early on, I think for me, and we hear this so much from our clients, it's at least for women, I think the imposter syndrome is really, really strong when you first get started, because you're like, well, I'm not good enough. Well, I don't have the experience. Well, she can do it and he can do it because she's charismatic or he's really successful. And it's hard for us to actually move through those self-doubts and excuses that we often make. But what's crazy is that's usually what holds us back the most. It's not the strategy.
No.
It's not the tactics. It's what's in between, your mind and what stories we tell ourselves about why we can't do the things that we're called to do.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just it's conditioning.
Yeah.
And so Kim came from a very strong background in academia, and so it's about titles and seniority, and there's a process. You have to do it for a certain period of time, and you have to achieve a certain title. And I came from a completely opposite background where it was more of the just go do it, just go do it, And so, I that's really all that I think it was for me. And I'm also too crazy to know that I'm being crazy.
He's being very humble, but
I'm too crazy to know that what I'm doing. And actually, one of my brother's friends actually said this when we were in college, and I had all these crazy things that I was going to do, flying to New York on Black Friday as a college kid, right? To buy clothes at Saks Fifth Avenue to go flip on eBay. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that I was doing in college, right? Just wild stuff. And I remember my brother's friend, who was also our joint roommate, there's three of us, right? And he said, Chris has crazy ideas and unrealistic expectations. And I'm like, well, he's kind of on the nose with that one. But so I do think there's something in me that's a little bit broken that I don't realize that what I'm doing is crazy. You
are the boldest person I know. That's for sure.
Yeah, but again, that's conditioning, because my dad growing up, sales rep. I don't want to get into the whole backstory, but like he would just walk into places like he owned it, like for his clients, like he would just walk in there. Like, so he serviced QVC / fast food restaurants. Like they made the actual menu boards for the, like the Arby's and the Taco Bells. And like, if when you order off that board, his company made those and he sold them. And like, we would be at like literally like a random location in the middle of nowhere. We're like in Jackson, Mississippi or whatever, like en route to somewhere. And he's like, oh, the Taco Bell, I'm going to check it out. And then he'd just go in there. But he'd like walk in the back. Like he was like part of the company. And then he's asking like a minimum wage cashier. He's like, what do you guys think about your menu boards? And I'm like, my brother and I are like, he's crazy. Like they've never even noticed these menu boards ever. Like they're literally just cashing in or checking, like clocking in to get a paycheck, right? To maybe pay their bills. And he's like, what do you think about your menu boards? So for me, right, that was my upbringing. It was completely the opposite. So me just going and pursuing like mowing lawns or flipping clothes on eBay was like this level of crazy compared to like the level of crazy that's walking into the back of a Taco Bell in the middle of nowhere. Like that's just.
But that's how he got business. He just talked to people.
No, yeah.
And I love that because it's such a good example of just being willing to do the work and show up and not waiting for people to come to you. Yeah. Like your dad is the definition of like, I'm going to sell this, period.
There's no,
He's amazing.
And then he'd grab a cup. And then he would go, this was actually brilliant. So he would, before, like we had a meeting, like Arby's was one of his big clients. This was before they were doing We Have the Meats. They were really struggling with like who the heck they were in the world. Because roast beef was a big fad in the 90s and then roast beef, because there was a whole attack on red meat, right? Which was nonsense as we know now. So basically, they were like in a state of like, we don't know who the heck we are anymore, right? And so anyway, bottom line is we had a meeting, and I would shadow him like from a very young age, right? Like really like elementary school. I was always just really interested in business. Anyways, so I remember one thing that I picked up that was really smart in many things. My dad's a brilliant salesperson. He's like Jedi mind trick level, like for real. I would be like, dang, that was good, and I'd like write that one down. But he would go by the location nearby the corporate store, and he'd be like, how do you guys like your menu? It's all routine, right? How do you like your menu board? But he would bring a cup, like he had just gone to Arby's, because we did, to Arby's corporate for the meeting. So he knows that like we support the brand, right? Like super smart, right? Like
he would stop by an Arby's and like pick up something to eat.
Or if we were going to, we had like Bojangles or like all these different like big names, right? Like Great American Cookie, Cinnabon, like we work with all of those. And so I would shadow him for some days, and he would always go with the product and be able to speak to it, right? But still, like the boldness of just going in there and doing those things, right? It was just like, so that was my world. So being 12, literally, and being in a massive like corporate setting, for me, it wasn't a big deal to then like step into, oh, I'm going to go pitch a bunch of realtors because I have a moving business. Mm-hmm. And if they refer me, I'm going to get like a $10,000 move. Like, because that was my upbringing. And for you, I think it was different.
Yeah, that's not the reality for most of us.
No.
Like most of us don't grow up in the business space, but it's still an amazing testament of like how you can, number one, how you can instill that into your kids.
Yeah.
Number two, though, I think that
it was really uncomfortable for me at the time, and now I would do probably more than that.
Yes, what do you mean probably?
You know what I mean? Like,
you do more than that.
Yeah, like I would. So, but everybody starts somewhere.
Exactly.
It's not like it's just who you are. I think we have this huge, massive limiting belief around that.
And I also think people have they confuse being self-assured with having doubts. And so I think my parents built a lot of self-assurance in me, in that like they really made sure that I knew like, oh, you are capable.
Yeah.
But in a particular avenue, I would feel so nervous and discouraged because it was a new thing and I didn't go to school for it. I think, for me, starting the marketing.
That's the classic.
It is the classic. But I wasn't going to go to there when I started social media at my social media agency. There was no bachelor's in social. Now you can. I believe there is a university who has a whole bachelor's on being an influencer.
Oh my god. No, these are the smoothest brains in America.
I know, right? So it's
sorry
hilarious.
If you're 10 and you're listening to this,
but this idea that and also like Puerto Rico, like we don't have that many opportunities like we do in the States. It's like, okay, you are either going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to be some kind of engineer, so that you have, guaranteed job security. Whereas here it's like, oh, you can switch careers 5 times and it's not a big deal. But I think a lot of our clients struggle with this idea that they have to prove themselves to the extreme. At least the women do. I don't see that as much in the men in terms of imposter syndrome, but I see it a lot in our girls, in that, they're constantly comparing themselves to other people. Well, I haven't, achieved X, so why would someone listen to me, or why would someone buy my course, or why would someone actually hire me? And there's a lot of head junk that keeps us small in many ways. The
men, we only realize it when we got in over our butt. No, for real. We get in over our butt, and literally.
You said it again.
Then
what does that even mean?
Well, the other term is a little bit more abrasive, but we get in over our butt, and basically what happens is
you can just say we get in over our head. That's how you say it.
That too. Yeah, that too.
Lord Jesus.
So, but what happens though is that we're all gung ho and fired up, right? And then we sell the thing, and then we're like, oh my gosh, I am totally an imposter. I just sold some stuff that I have no idea how to deliver on. I remember when I sold my first in the moving business, right? The first business, I'm like 25, and I sold a $60,000 installation contract, and they're like, "You've done this kind of stuff before?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I have." And we kind of had. I
mean, you installed a lot of furniture in residential homes.
Right, exactly. Well, we did do some stuff for like the university, like kind of like installing stuff in the university. I mean, it was a very strong kind of, right? So and I remember the guy said something to me too. He was like, "You got big, whatever, the things that men have." Anyways, he said that because I kept selling the fact that like on the contract I was really aggressive about it. He's like, "Man, you got big thing." Anyways, so anyways, but then the imposter syndrome kicked in.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
I didn't think this ever kicked in for you.
No, so it'll show up in different ways. But so men kind of have 2 different ways we go about it, right? We either like the full court press, we either rise or we sink, right? Like it's like, hey, it's sink or swim, homie. So I went nuts, and I got I started going crazy, like researching how I was going to actually do this.
No, but when did it sink in, and how did you feel? And
when
what
we
did you tell yourself?
When we signed the contract.
So you signed the contract, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to deliver on this
thing.
Well,
first I had to get...
that I already sold, and I sold very confidently. How the heck do I make this happen
I sold
now?
it without even having the appropriate insurance in place. They're like, you have the insurance too, right?
We're going to go to jail.
Yeah.
Just this podcast
no, I'm totally outing myself. But yeah, so the premium, so first of all, no one wanted to they didn't want to underwrite a policy because it was high risk, and I'm in my 20s, right? And so it's like getting your driver's license, or rather getting your insurance for driving when you're 16. It's really, no one wants to cover you. You're an idiot. So no one wanted to cover me in this business because this is a high risk, high exposure business, right? So I literally, I'm selling the contract, and I'm driving all over the place trying to get insurance to be able to do the project.
Yeah.
Well, the lowest price that I got was $30,000.
For a $60,000 project.
For a $60,000, and that was for the year. So if I didn't get another project, I was going to be way in the hole. And then I had to have $7,000 as the first payment, and then the rest of them came out every pay run. They take a percentage out of like however much you racked up in payroll. And I'm like, and I sold the contract knowing that I need to come up with $7,000. Yeah. And it was like in 3 days. I'm like, I have no idea I'm gonna come up with $7,000 in 3 days.
Oh, so you already had insurance lined up then?
No, but I mean, I went all over town. And I found
you had it lined up.
Random guy, that wanted to insure me on the 3 towns over.
Okay, but this is after the contract was signed.
I think right before, right after.
Before, yeah. Okay, cool.
Regardless, I had verbally committed.
So you, but you knew about the $7,000.
Yes, I knew. Well, I knew it was going to be expensive. I knew it was going to be $7,000.
Got it.
I'm going to figure it out. But anyway, so then the imposter started to kick in because I'm like, I don't have the insurance. and then I was like, wait a minute, how are we going to do this? Like, I don't even know if I have a crew big enough to actually deliver on this. It were like, we're sending all these trucks. It was 316 bedrooms, and it was all the furniture, like literally all of it. The beds, the dressers, the entertainment centers, the nightstands, the bar stools. I mean, whole apartment.
It's not assembled. It's not just installing it. You have to assemble it, and then you have to install it.
Think IKEA, but like 10 times worse. Yeah. They don't even say, so it all comes from China.
It's coming from China, yeah.
This one in particular comes from China, this particular manufacturer. They were all Chinese. And so there's not even instructions. And they don't even send it in a box with the conclusive... this is a nightstand.
This is how you
They send
put it
all
together.
the legs together. They send all the tabletops together. They send all of the seating pads together.
It's cheaper.
Because it's cheaper to ship it that way because you can pack the truck tighter. So all this stuff's arriving and you're like, I don't know. There's thousands of parts. And again, I've never done this before.
Yeah.
So the imposter syndrome kicked in
pretty
real hard.
hard.
So I feel like with men, if you're going to do that, you better be willing to accept the trade-off that like you're going to have to bust your behind to figure out how the heck, like it's jump off the cliff and figure out how to build a plane on the way down. And so I went nuts till like 3 a.m.
Is that your philosophy?
Yes. So it has burned me. This has burned me. But I would go up to the property at like midnight, and I would just, it was a new apartment. It was off campus student housing was what we were doing an install job for. And so I was walking around like timing like how long it took me to walk here, there, and wherever, and like mapping out what the best routes would be and this and that. And so we crushed it.
You
and
did.
Yeah.
You did such a good job.
They said it was the best job that anybody had ever done. And then next thing you know, we got $500,000 more contracts from just that one person, and then that led to us working with 5 more furniture manufacturers and turnkey student housing.
So the takeaway is when you're starting something new, no one knows what the heck they're doing.
Nobody knows.
No one knows. They're just pretending.
Yeah.
And so you have to go and take the leap, even if you don't feel ready, because that's the number one excuse that we think about when we coach people is like, I'm not ready. Well, there's never going to be a time when you are ready. Like that's the fallacy.
No.
Thinking that you are ready to invest in a big coaching program, thinking that you're ready to expand your team, thinking that you're ready to take on a bigger project. You are never ready.
Never.
You got to just do it, and you'll learn in the process. And I think for us too, kind of getting into the whole imposter syndrome thing for women, I love how you talked about for men, but for women too, I think we get so self-focused where the spotlight is on us. You know, it's like we have to perform and we have to make it happen. And the reality is business is about serving other people. Business is about providing a solution to a particular problem. And so for all of our clients, we're always telling them, you're making this about you, and it's not about you. It's about the people that you are trying to serve. So when it feels scary, when it feels like you don't have the capacity, when you feel like, well, I'm just not smart enough, or I don't have enough experience, or I haven't, done enough with clients, or I haven't X, Y, or Z, you really need to remember that you are here to serve a bigger purpose, that it's about calling and it's about what God is calling you to do. Even if you're scared, moving forward with strength and like doing it anyway, regardless of how you feel, is so important. I think sometimes we get so self-absorbed and we put the spotlight on us. I remember coaching one of our clients just had a $100,000 launch, and she's done bigger launches than that before. But she was so in imposter syndrome one day before she was doing a training. And I had to remind her, like, listen, you have already, the burden of proof of the results that you get people is so staggeringly high. You have to remember what you've been able to achieve in the past and how you've already helped so many people. This is a walk in the park. You've done this 5, 6, 7, 8 times now. You know exactly how to refine your process, and you're showing up not for you, you're showing up for the people that you're meant to serve. And I think that releases the stress from us, from being like, oh, we have to be perfect, to no, we just have to show up and we have to do our best. That's not to say that you have to do things without having experience. I don't necessarily recommend what Chris.
No,
Chris
if you're gonna be dumb, you better be tough.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, we need that in a shirt. That is so good. But it's true.
The mantra of my early years in life.
And the thing, you're just derailing my whole thought process, and I love it, but it's too much. But anyway, I think sometimes we have to remember that it's not about us. And that we just have to step boldly.
I think thinking along that same line of thought there, about making it about you, I think what we end up doing, and I tell people to do this in other areas too. Like, if a customer does something, I'm like, okay, but what does it say about them more than what it says about you, right? Like you always have to kind of think about it. Like they're maybe not in a good place. They may be, there's something crazy going on in there. Like it doesn't mean that you're not rendering a quality service. It may be just having a day, right? We always make it about us. But I think too, the way we do it when it comes to doubts and excuses and limited beliefs is like, we tend to hyper focus. Like we're the only one that's ever gone through this in the history of the world. And I remember several people, I remember specifically Russell Brunson talking about, he's like, the more I've grown, the louder the voices of doubt have gotten, the more the imposter syndrome has set in. And so it is something that you wrestle with. And I do believe this. I really do believe this. But I believe specifically if you are in a calling and God is calling you to multiply your giftings in certain ways in your business, then I believe that you're going to hear those whispers of doubt from the enemy of this world.
It's absolutely true.
And so that to me is you have to make it more than about the flesh, and you have to walk with spirit, because God is trying to do something supernatural and powerful in your life, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And those things are going to come up. But I think recognizing that there is an adversary and that those maybe aren't your thoughts. Like, we aren't called to live in a spirit of fear. And so I think sometimes it isn't just us. It's something speaking into us, whispering lies into us. And so that has given me a lot to be like, no. This is what I've been called to. This is my North Node, and I'm walking not in fear, but I'm walking towards that courageously, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big part of it. And I think that having that as your guiding North Star, I think is probably the most impactful thing that you can do if you have a faith practice like what we have.
100%. And I think too, what you said is so powerful about, what Russell was sharing, where the more successful you are, the more pressure there is, because now you're performing in public.
Yeah.
And so if you have to fail, it's much harder to fail in public than it is to fail in secret.
True.
And so I think exercising those muscles before you're in the limelight, it's so important because it teaches you and trains you. The more you do it, the more confident you become. It's that confidence, competence, circle that we always talk about, that cycle of like doing it more, the more reps you get in, the more you say yes to doing things scared, the less scared you become to do new things and get uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think too, a resource that I would recommend is the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. And she talks about a fixed versus a growth mindset. And I think you have to realize, like, you are going to make mistakes, and you are going to get your butt kicked, and it is going to be painful, and but the reality is that look, you only lose if you give up.
It's true.
Right? Like, everything is a learning experience. There's no such thing as failure in life. I mean, that's not like some woo-woo comment. Like, that's real. Because it's just part of the story. If you watch a movie and then the main character experiences some kind of a challenge along the way, that's what makes the story worth telling. If there wasn't the adversary, if there wasn't the pitfall or the that main challenge that they experienced, both internal or external, the story is not a good movie. Like, it's not even worth watching. It's not a good show. It's not a good story. And so what you're doing is you're not responsible for the tests, but you are responsible for the testimony. And so to craft that testimony, there are going to be those things that you have to overcome, the things that you have to go through, the valley that you have to cross. And I just think that normalizing that, but also having a growth mindset through that process of like, okay, cool. I've always talked about this, and I made a reference to it in a previous episode where I said, like, marketing was like the last infinity stone in my infinity gauntlet. And a lot of people are like, dude, you've lived like 10 lives. I'm like, yeah, I have. But here's the thing. I've gotten my butt kicked at every single thing that I've done, literally. But somewhere along the way, I picked up something that I was like, powerful. That's powerful. That's going to help. That's going to help. And it didn't come easy. None of it came easy. In fact, Kim can literally tell you, and this isn't like a look at us kind of thing. I promise you it's not. We have our complete shortfalls and shortcomings right now that we deal with. Like, it's just, again, it's part of it. You never arrive. You literally never arrive. But I'm not joking, you guys. Some of the stuff that we do with technology now, personally, I can't believe that I actually, like, when Kim started dating me, guys, I wore the clip for my phone on my belt. Like, for real.
Wait. Pause. What he's trying to say is that he had a BlackBerry that he wore on his belt with a clip.
Yes.
And he was 25 years old.
And this was and iPhones existed. Like, I was like, no, I don't like it because it didn't have buttons.
It's not a business phone. I want to be respected in business. And if you have a business, you have a BlackBerry.
I was already a boomer at 25, 24.
I mean, Chris is 25 going on 60.
Guys, I could barely log into a computer. Like, for real. Like, that was not... I remember when I had like anyways, I don't want to go down two rabbit holes. But like, I wasn't using CRMs. The first year in the business, in the moving business we started, guys, I took every phone call, I wrote down their request with no formatting, just on a yellow notepad. And
True.
Sometimes I couldn't find the notepad, and it was a day of the job, and my guys would show up and they'd be like, "What are we doing?" I'll be like,
"Okay." Literally.
Let me look through my notepad, and I couldn't find the job details, nor their address, nor their phone number.
If you found us or me through a Trello video, this is why. It's because we have lived experience of what it looks like to not have a productivity system.
So my point is that now sometimes I'm doing things with technology and I literally am like, I can't believe that I can actually do this. Like, I can't believe people look at me as like a tech sophisticated person.
Yeah, like you're out here
not who I was at all.
Building apps with Replit.
Yeah, I'm like working with AI agents and like doing all this. I'm like, I can't code, but I can do a lot with technology, and that wasn't my thing at all. Kim is shocked that I'm in marketing. Like shocked, like it's like
crazy.
I literally, people think that like, oh, it's just some great No, I was terrible.
I could not get Chris to post any content whatsoever or even be aware of the platforms and the things that were happening. Like with ads, oh my gosh, I had to sell you so hard on doing ads or doing anything for the movie company. And now you're like freaking genius level with marketing.
Thank you. She would put a camera in my face and be like, say something for social media. And I would literally like twist my arm and be like, hi. Have a good summer. You know, like it was the worst. Like I had like literal charisma level -400. Like it was so bad. Like you could clearly tell that she made me do it.
No, but now you have like a freaking awesome podcast and your YouTube channel and like a whole media company. It's wild. So that tells you that.
But here's the thing,
who you are now doesn't mean that is who you're going to become, and God knows that. Yeah. And what is amazing about that is you have to get comfortable walking through the doors that God opens in your path, and I think that's what you've done so well. You really have. You've said yes to the uncomfortable things. I just think
we compare our now to someone else's like 10 years in.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not fair. And I remember I did that. I love Lewis Howes. This is not a shot at Lewis Howes. But I remember when I first started my own podcast, I went and I listened to a couple of his first episodes and it was like, good gravy. This is terrible. Like it's so bad. But you know what? Like you're going to suck at everything at first. Yeah. I promise you will.
Yep.
And then here's the deal though, is that people will get to like see that growth. You get to experience that growth. And I think what ends up happening is it becomes a practice, right? It becomes a practice that it becomes who you are. Like you're just constantly focused on growth and improvement and progress.
Yeah.
And you strengthen that muscle and develop that as a habit.
Yep.
And I think like next thing you know, like the fear of something new, or some of these imposter syndromes or some of what, like it kind of starts to go away a little bit, or at least maybe it doesn't go away, but you feel up for the challenge maybe more,
I think you learn how to deal with it. I feel like you have
yeah.
tools in your tool chest that you can pull out, and you just get better at dealing with the discomfort. I think we all have to get comfortable in the discomfort, and knowing that in the discomfort is when we actually become the best version of ourselves, because we cannot grow if we don't have any challenges. It's like going to the gym, right? You put pressure and resistance on your muscles so that you actually grow them. And so without putting in the reps, without putting that challenge, without putting that extra burden on your muscles, you can't actually grow. And so a lot of people are watching and listening to this podcast, and you're expecting that growth is just going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Like it's just going to come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden you're going to become this like expert in your field or a thought leader.
Yeah.
No, my friend, it comes from doing the reps. It comes from saying yes when you want to say no. It comes from walking through the doors that God opens for you. And it comes from really being okay in the discomfort. I think we coach a lot of our clients who are so uncomfortable and they're so desperate to move into comfort. It's like, no, listen, child. You grow in the discomfort.
Yeah.
In the challenges, God builds into us resilience, strength, determination, and we become a better version of ourselves with every single obstacle.
Yeah.
I think the people who grow the most in business, who achieve the most in business, are the ones who welcome the discomfort. Yeah. They're not trying to move into comfort. Yeah. They're okay in the discomfort, and they might even seek it on purpose. Yeah. So they're not staying stagnant constantly.
I was going to say the other one too is that we find complacency in our comfort.
Ooh.
Right. So it's like we're trying to get out of discomfort, but then we get real complacent in comfort to the point where you're like, I haven't grown at all in like years.
That is such a trap. Mm-hmm. I think that is one of the strongest, craziest traps from the enemy. Can you speak more on that? Because I feel like we've been in that.
Well, it's a lie.
Before.
It's a lie. Yeah, it is. We have been there. Mm-hmm. It's a lie because what ends up happening is that you fall out of touch.
Yep.
You lose sight of your audience. You're not sharpening your skills.
Yeah.
Other people are. And so like they're closing gap on you. And then next thing you know, you're kind of obsolete.
Right.
And so then you're forced into discomfort.
Yeah.
By seeking refuge in comfort, you actually end up falling involuntarily into discomfort again. And so you can choose whether I'm going to deliberately enter myself into discomfort because I'm going to continue to grow, or if I'm going to fall into discomfort because you got a little comfy comf.
Yeah. I think we've talked about that, right, in previous episodes about choosing your suck. You know, we get a lot of complaints. A lot of our clients are like, they're experts at not everyone, but we hear a lot of complaints and excuses because of the nature of what we do.
Work with people. Like that's
Exactly.
we're humans. That's what we do, right?
It's like, well,
we're
I can't.
Great at it.
Yeah, I can't make it happen because of this, or I don't have time, or I don't have money. Whatever the
Everybody
excuse is.
has a unique thing that is only them.
Only them.
Never in the history of humans has it applied to anybody but them. But no, and I'll give you 10 examples, right, of other people that I know that I work with right now that have this same problem. Oh, but that's different because mine is this way. I'm like, okay, it's a different flavor Skittle. It's a different color Skittle. It's the same dang thing. Shut up. So stupid.
We got what is it, Mr. No herself?
Yeah.
Like we just whenever we present, we get into that mindset. We present solutions, and it's like, well, no, that's not going to work because X, Y, or Z. It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't have time for this. But the reality is, I think a lot of times we're so passionate about getting back into our little comfort zone that we forget about picking your suck, right? We've talked about that. Like it sucks to be uncomfortable, but you know what sucks more? It sucks to not have a job. It sucks to not have a business. It sucks to not be able to actually accomplish the goals that you've set out for yourself and then look back and have regret because you didn't take the step because you were too scared or you were too lazy or you made every excuse under the book to say, I can't do this because of X, and you gave yourself an out. Do not give yourself an out. It is such a trap. We see it every freaking day in coaching.
Yeah, it's true.
In fact, I would say that a big part of our job is holding people accountable and challenging them to not make excuses, because any situation you can make an excuse to not get up in the morning, to not go to work, to not serve people, to not post the content, to not shoot the blog post, to not or write the blog post or shoot the podcast or shoot the YouTube video. It's so easy to stay comfortable.
Yeah.
But the reality is nothing happens in comfort. It doesn't.
I would say, so as business owners, we really set ourselves up to fail in so many ways.
It's true.
One is we try to bring like our, Industrial Revolution, era education, which was made for us to literally be a corporate stooge in a 9-to-5 and just do as we're told, right? And that's the whole education system. It's just, I'm going to tell you this and remember and regurgitate on the day that I say. It's not critical thinking. If you took a critical thinking class in college, kudos to you. I did. It was incredible. It helps unlock your mind in many ways. But anyways, all I have to say, I think when we get into the real world as business owners, we've had someone in our lives, be it a teacher or what, like in athletics, you have a coach. In school, you have a teacher, and they're holding you accountable to doing the things that you need to do in the order that you need to do them. They don't just give you the books and say, all right, see you for the final exams in 3 months. Like they're holding you to account. They're giving you the process. They're giving you, and I'm setting up a big like soft pitch here, guys. But the reality is I don't understand as business owners in this one particular area, how we think we're going to do this alone. With our mindset that we had from our 9-to-5, this and that, we're going to change our mindset, hold ourselves accountable, and see our blind spots on our own. Like that just doesn't make any sense. So for me, you need to have someone in your life that's helping you think a different way. I mentioned, the industrial era revolution, industrial era mindset with the schooling system and what have you, the 9-to-5 mindset, right? The accountability and structure in which you're doing things, which is huge. It's not about doing the things. It's about the strategic order in which you're doing the things, but also somebody to call you on your ish. Like, right? Call you on your ish. Because all this stuff, guys, if I bring this McFlurry stuff to my coach, all these excuses and doubts, if I bring that McFlurry to my executive coach, he's going to call my butt on it. Like he's going to call me hard on it. He's going to be like, bro, like for real? Like we were literally just talking about how we had a couples therapist and he would look me dead in my face. Shout out to Dustin. He would look me dead in my face and like be like,
really? Really?
And I'm like, you're right.
He just had to give you a look. And but same with me. It's
I don't understand how we expect. Guys, we literally enter into a new thing, something we've never done before. Never. and we think we're going to apply this other data that has no relevancy whatsoever to what we're doing. We're going to somehow fit it in there. Oh, because what? And then we have no mindset about how we should be approaching this thing. No skills, never done it before. And we don't have anybody to hold us accountable or give us a protocol in which we should follow. Like, could there be a bigger recipe for failure than that right there?
Yeah.
You know, like, dude, get a coach. I'm not saying it has to be us.
Yeah.
I'm really not. But most of this stuff, like as I read through this, I'm like, you need a coach, 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 you need a coach.
Yeah.
Like, you need a coach. And no one does this alone. Like, no one does this without coaches. Coaches have coaches.
Yeah.
Like, Tony Robbins has coach. Mm-hmm. We went and saw the amazing John Maxwell. I was going to say Jack Canfield. John Maxwell. We went and saw him a couple months ago.
That's incredible.
Bro's like 80.
Yeah.
And he still has coaches.
He's hustling.
I'm like, who the heck? Like, your coach is your
who could possibly be your
like
coach?
is your coach Yoda? Like, who? Like,
for real?
How do you have somebody older than you coaching you? But you know what? He's actually has younger coaches now. Mm-hmm. Why? Relevant. Because he's falling out of touch, maybe because he's in his 80s and like he stayed hip, he's in shape, he's still on, he has,
Oh, he dresses the part too.
So like a lot of these will literally dissolve immediately. And we're going to give you guys actionable and practical steps here. Sorry, I made this way too long-winded. But honestly, every time I read one of these or as I read through these, I'm like, get a coach.
Yeah,
accessible.
Link is in the description of this video.
And you can get into
that's what he's talking about.
And you can get into group programs. Like if you're brand new and you're like, I don't have the money. Okay, sure, fine. We've all been there. But like, we've invested $2,000 in mentors from afar through their digital programs in their communities. Yeah. Like you've never had more of an opportunity to join programs that literally before you would have had to like go to their office.
But you know what?
Right? And like spend thousands of dollars.
But let's get the real. You guys, if you're listening to this, you've probably gone through courses and programs that you don't actually show up for.
True.
That is the biggest problem.
It's true.
Like there's so much information.
You pay for it.
There's so many
dust,
books. Yeah. You haven't read the books and you haven't actually gone through the courses and you're not participating in coaching. It's like, listen, you have to show up. There's only so much that people can do for you. Ultimately, we need to be disciplined enough and mature enough and wise enough to actually show up and do the work too. Yeah. Because I think a big reason why it's just really interesting, a big reason why people don't want to buy courses anymore and they're like kind of tired of courses is because they don't show up for the freaking courses.
Yeah.
They don't actually. No. I have never bought a course that I haven't finished. Do you know how many people can say that? Very, very, very few.
You're an alien.
Most people, like I can't fathom, and that's not being self-righteous. I have many other faults, and I have a coach for that. But the reality is, you gotta show up too.
Yeah.
You can't be a lazy schmuck and expect that the work is just gonna magically happen because you signed up for a program. It's like, oh, now the market is tighter courses. Yeah, but you didn't show up and do the work either. That's a problem, and we need to call it out.
The average ROI on hiring coaches, 788%.
That's insane.
788%.
That's amazing.
So it's absolutely crazy. It's why we do what we do. Yeah. And I would say this, I almost posted this in our app because we have an app for our community that's exclusive to people in our world. But I almost posted, I was thinking the other night, I was like, okay, the people that show up for the things that we do and the people that actually apply the things that we teach and they actually are willing to be coached, I would say there's like a 99.5% success rate.
They're winning, yeah.
Like legitimately, like it's almost a guarantee. Like they legitimately are winning. Now maybe they're like still on their way to winning like the big win, like they want to make multiple six figures or whatever. But like they are way further along than they would be otherwise, admittedly, and they will tell you that. And again, I'm not saying that like we have a magic wand. They're the ones doing the work. Like absolutely. I take no credit in their successes. Yeah. But we all need those people to see. It's a paradox. We don't see those things. We don't realize we're living in limited beliefs. We don't know how to overcome our doubts. We don't know how to reframe those things. Again, it might be just blind to you outright, like I said. So sometimes having that person in your world or having those people in your world in like a group coaching setting, it literally changes everything. Or we'll see somebody come in where they've been struggling for years. Next thing you know, they triple or quadruple or more their business in like less than 6 months.
Yeah,
it's and wild. They've been stuck for years. And then all of a sudden they're like, why didn't I do this sooner? And so for us, we're big advocates of that. And that's why we got into this is because we hired coaches. Guys, we've spent like stupid money, like deposit on a house multiple times and then some. Like a 20% deposit on not this FHA stuff.
Down payment, you mean?
Yeah, what'd I say?
Deposit,
I'm sorry. A down payment on a house. That's what I meant to say. But like, I'm not talking FHA deposit. Or I said it again. Down payment. I'm talking
I
like.
promise we've done this before.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we have. I'm talking like down payment that like you got bad credit kind of down payment. You know what I mean? Like when I'm 20% or more, you know?
Yeah, you're talking about the big.
The big, yeah.
Yeah, but it's wild too, because I think that many of these problems are solved, like you said, with coaching, but we have to show up, one. Yeah. Two, I think we need to get out of our own way, because we've seen more than enough times we'll try to coach someone and they're in a full-blown no state.
Yeah.
Like it is a no negative state, and nothing that you present as a solution is going to change their mindset. And I think this was in Gary Keller's book, The One Thing. He was talking about a conversation he had with his mom, and I guess he was making an excuse about something, and and she was like, you should never agree with your limitations. And I was like, whoa, that's powerful, because I think sometimes people want to give themselves the out of the excuse. No, that can't work for me because I'm in X or Y situation, or I have this commitment, or I have this business model, or I have this inclination, or I don't have that talent. And then they're not coachable.
Don't have the skills.
Right. They're not coachable. It's like all of the solutions. You have friends right now who are in this situation, and it's so frustrating because there's a simple solution to their problem, and yet they want to just complain and agree with their limitations instead of being like, you know what? That's actually a good idea. Why? Because it requires them becoming uncomfortable and actually solving the problem.
But some of this manifests, especially when you're in that negative no state, because the repeated issues with not reconciling these doubts and excuses. When you let these things fester for so long, that's when you enter into, like I would say, it's like a sliding scale. Like your optimism is dwindled because of all of those downfalls, all of those failures ish, right? Like I don't like using that word, learning experiences, but left unaddressed. It will lead you to that negative no state where everything is no, everything is negative, everything is bad. You've lost any semblance of optimism. So I do know Gary says too, I believe it was Gary, but he says the thing about your excuses is no one's going to take them from you. Like you get to keep them.
You get to keep them.
You get to keep them.
Okay, maybe that's the quote. If you argue in favor of your excuses or your limitations, you get to keep them.
Yeah, you get to keep them. That's what he said. Yeah, that's what he said.
That was so powerful. And it's like, listen, argue all you want. Why would you argue in favor of the thing that's holding you back and agree with it? That's crazy.
I think
it's a trap in itself. And I think it keeps so many of us in a very small mindset that doesn't allow us to grow.
Something Kim has been pushing me to do, and it helps me a lot when I do it, and I don't give myself the permission to do it as much as I should. And I'm going to make that a point to do this more. We go exercise our physical body. I go to the gym every day because I don't function well if I don't. Like I just, from a methylation standpoint, I don't want to get into like nerdy epigenetic stuff. But my body functions better when I'm methylating well, and me going to the gym, I start methylating better and I have better days. I think we all benefit from, whether it's movement, just getting 10,000 steps or 8,000 steps, whatever. But we don't do that really drives me crazy, myself included. We just wake up and expect that our brain's going to roll out of bed and bench press 450 pounds. Like we're not flexing that muscle. We're not, in some cases, there's like a crazy statistic about the amount of people that actually have read a book cover to cover after schooling has ended. And it's like
less than one book after.
It's obscene. And I read another stat that like after the age of 30, most men will never sprint again in their lives. After the age of 30, like they'll never sprint again ever.
Is that true?
Yeah, I believe so. Well, that's what I read on the internet, so it has to be true.
What?
But seriously, look that up because it was something really like just outrageous.
That's wild.
So we don't read anymore, right? Like but for me, it's journaling. My mind is a very crazy place, and sometimes these doubts or limiting beliefs or whatever the case may be, they're underneath the surface. They're not overt. They're not obvious to me. If I'm in a negative no state, like I don't realize how I got there, and I don't realize the things that are leading me to be in that negative no state. And so for me, it's sitting down with my thoughts, journaling, and doing that mental exercise, right? Having that mindfulness or meditation practice or prayer practice or whatever you do, like sitting in the Word, like all those things. Like sometimes we don't see things and we're showing up in a way, it's a byproduct how we're showing up. That's what I was trying to say.
Symptom.
It's a byproduct of the things that we're not doing. It's a byproduct of the things that are underneath the surface that we're not even conscious of. And so I don't want anybody to feel like we're picking on them, by talking about this stuff. We see it every single day, and it's like, dude, you constantly sabotage yourself. Like, it's not to do with your business. You have a beautiful business. You have amazing skill. You have an amazing product. You have an amazing service. You is the problem. Sometimes it's even to the point where I literally got into with some of the people that I've mentored in the past, when I was involved with like accelerator programs and stuff like that. I'm like, you need to hire a CEO because you've been sitting on this for 7 freaking years and you're still the problem. And despite everybody telling you all the things, there's pride, there's ego, there's this, there's that, there's whatever, but it's you stuff. It's you stuff. And you're still sitting here, whereas someone else with the right mindset approach would have scaled this to the moon.
Right.
In one case, and I'm not going to say specifics because I don't want to, I think this person actually listens to the show, but I got him a connection with like, guys, this was like the golden ticket. I got a golden ticket. This was the golden ticket. It was the gold, like the player in this space. Like when you see this brand, the logo, they're the only one. They're literally the only player. They supply in this particular industry. They're the number one supplier in the world. I got him an intro, and he's in the same field, and it was 1,000% like a merger acquisition situation, like millions and millions of dollars. I mean, just completely pooed the bed. And I was like, you are the problem. You're your own worst enemy. And we see this all the time. Like, don't get to the point where you look back at your life and say what could have been if it weren't for me and my nonsense and my baggage and my BS. Like that to me, there's no bigger regret of like that big what if, right? And a lot of people say like they look back about their family and they should have spent some time with their kids and should have spent more time. And all of that I think is layered into this as well, right? But man, to me, like it's like, oof, we got to unpack what's in our brains 100%. And really like see what's going on here, because I don't think we even realize how much is actually a hindrance to the things 100%. That we want to achieve.
I think.
Was it true about the sprinting, by the way?
So
you're looking it up.
Grok says, yes, but it can also be, it's plausible, but it may not be 100% based on trends.
Okay. Well, the internet lied.
So there's just like conflicting studies on that data, but I think that's interesting. Anyway,
I'll try to find the article that I read.
You're good. I'm sure there's many because it referenced quite a few.
Cool.
But really, I think as we like wrap up this first part, because we're going to have to do a part 2 because there's so many of these, I want to touch on one last thing. And that is, I think, the fear of failure, but also the fear of too much success. And so again, I know we talk a lot about women versus men.
I think the Christians wrestle with the fear of success one big time.
For sure. Yeah. And I think people
feel guilty about it.
Might feel like we're being sexist. We're not. We're just kind of showing trends based on our experience. But I think,
said the men are dumb and we got to be tough. So I think we're being fair here.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I think we're being fair here.
You know, I could hear the wokesters. Oh, it's so sexist.
Yeah.
Anyway, get over it. The point is that I think
they don't believe in genders anyway. So what are we talking about here?
Exactly. But at least for me, you know, I've had both, and I think I still wrestle with both in many ways. I think the fear of failure is stronger sometimes than the fear of success, but especially as someone who, you know, has experienced a lot of craziness in terms of lots of success, lots of failure in business. And there's been seasons in our life that have been super chaotic. I wrestle with both. I wrestle with not having, you know, achieved the things that God has called me to achieve. And I think my greatest fear in life is being in my deathbed and having regrets about not pouring myself out completely, or like God wasn't able to use me to my full potential.
He had to use someone else.
He had to use someone else because I was too afraid, or I made excuses, or I couldn't move past my discomfort, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I also, when we're having conversations about scaling our business or getting to a new milestone or launching something new, the first thought in my mind is always, yes, but this is going to be really challenging. It's going to affect my lifestyle. We're going to be so busy. People are going to be screaming at me because all these things have happened, right? And
so many times.
So I've validated with real life, and it's almost like a trauma that I'm always working on, because it's so crazy. But I think as women too, we do this all the time. It's like, that's great, but there's always a but of like why you can't do it, and that's the first thought. So I'm really working, especially in this season, of being like, no, even if this happens, that's like my word, right?
Yeah.
Even if, no matter what, I love being able to be like, even if that happens, God has a plan. Even if that happens, I know that I'm smart enough to figure out a different way. Even if that happens, I've been here before, and I know that I have the tools and the resources around me to overcome whatever stress and chaos can come from having too much success.
Yeah, I think those intentional reframes. There was Dave Asprey talked about that. When you say like a negative, you catch yourself.
Yeah.
At first, you're not going to catch all of them. But then you'll find yourself where you start catching these negative statements and you reframe them when you correct yourself, right? I remember for a while I'm ADD massively, as you guys have probably already picked up and I've already talked about. But ADD people, we can procrastinate everything. And I remember...
Hold on, that was really funny.
What?
That was actually hilarious.
What
I need
was
to
actually
pause
hilarious?
to laugh. Because you're like, I'm very ADD.
I'm very ADD.
And I'm sure you picked it up by now.
They're like, dude, what is wrong
But
with this
you
guy?
just like moved into the next thing. I had to laugh. It's hilarious.
So we're notorious for procrastination. Like everything's tomorrow, right? And it's like, then tomorrow is 10 years and we're like, oh gosh, I just haven't cleaned my room. Yeah.
Okay, pause. You are never procrastinating
Not
about
anymore.
work at all, ever. I
but-
never see you doing that.
No, but that's been intentional.
You have the opposite problem. You do too much.
Yeah, now. And so, but that's, again, like that was a struggle. That was a thing that I wrestled with my entire youth. And literally I looked like a hoarder. I just closed my door and be like, oh my God, it's not happening in there. And my parents would go in and be like, where is he? For real. So for me, I remember I got so tired. I was so sick and tired of the procrastination because it was bleeding into my professional life as well. And I feel like I wasn't showing up consistently, which again, Kim can tell you that is not the person I am now. In fact, Brian recently, her brother in our who works with us in the business, he was like, yeah, like Chris is like always like this. And I was like, dude, I was not always like that. Like not at all. He's like, really? So anyways, for me, it was intentional correction. It was like what Kim's saying with the reframe, like catch yourself, make it conscious to you, right? Like catch it in the moment. And so I remember whenever I tried to procrastinate something, I would stop immediately and do the thing that I was procrastinating. And now that short-term drill sergeant, you can't do that long-term. Yeah. But if you can start to develop those like habits around like, just do it, just do it, just do it. And then you start tricking your brain because you're like, dopamine. I got it done. Achievement, go more. So now I am I'm such a thirsty dopamine person that like, I love achieving, I love doing, I love accomplishing, I love getting things done. I love putting a stamp on it. So I've tricked myself into overcoming some of that procrastination, which has been really, really, really effective.
Yeah, so like rewiring your brain.
Rewiring completely.
On purpose, being intentional, knowing yourself, knowing what your downfalls are, what your weaknesses are. Ideally working with a therapist who can help you figure that out, give you really good tools. It makes a huge difference. Therapy has been a massive, kind of tool in our toolbox, as have been coaches. And so I think that the really positive side of this, because we were pretty strong on you today. I mean, we told you like it was, right? Now we have to like pat you in the back a little bit, give you some encouragement, is that you absolutely can rewire and become a much better version. Like it doesn't mean that because you have this challenge or this weakness or this struggle, that's the way it's always going to be. Yeah.
I wanted to say one more thing. It was super important and I lost my thought talking about ADD, right? ADD. But again, something in line with the countering some of those negative, whatever, right? So I'll give you a BTS, right? Behind the scenes. Today we have one of our programs. We've had some like things come up. This is what prompted the episode, is because we've had some like negative situations come up, a lot of complaints and not complaints, excuses. And we just get really like, we're exhausted by it. Right. And like, when I can't because. It's like,
it's just been a coaching day where everyone's in a no mindset.
So, sorry, I'm not trauma dumping here. I'm not, but it was a relevant, things have been hard in the world. And so we're seeing it kind of percolate more.
For sure.
And so what a non-mature, less refined entrepreneur will do is they'll let that fester. They'll see a problem and they won't address it. It becomes this like habitual complaining-ism where you're just complaining. Well, they don't. And then next thing you know, again, now you're in that really negative mindset where you're like, people suck. And you're like getting really cynical. And I've been there many times. Like I've had some nicknames, specifically in the moving company, where it was like, I was so cynical. I'm just, do your job, shut up. Like I didn't have anything to do with them. I didn't want to see them. Just go do your job. Shut up. And so the problem though is that when you don't correct it, as entrepreneurs, this isn't a job. Like no one's telling you can't do this and you have to do it this way and you can't fix it and you can't take a different approach. And so today I was frustrated. I went to the gym And I messaged Kim because I had an idea. I was like, I'm fixing this problem today. Like, I'm fixing it. And so I texted her. I'm like, this is my proposed solution. And she was like, it's brilliant. That'll change everything. And I'm like, perfect. Let's implement that immediately.
Yeah.
Let's correct the thing that's giving us the thing that's giving us the frustrations. And so,
whereas before we might have avoided it,
yes,
and then it festered, and then it blew up because we were so frustrated by the problem.
Yeah. So we've developed what we call the issue solution map, and maybe we can show you guys in the next episode how we go through. That'd be a fun thing to do in part 2.
Sure.
But like, we put all the issues down in one column, and then we derive solutions in the next column, and then we put a level of difficulty and a level of importance ranking on a scale of 1 to 5 with how, like, is this urgent? Like, is this the house on fire and we need to fix this now? Is this going to be an easy thing to fix or a long thing? If it's a hard thing, we develop a project for, right? So like, it allows you to kind of be like, okay, this sucks. How to fix it? This is going on. What do I do? And then just notate all those things. I feel like you just brain dump all those, right? So that'd be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, maybe we could do it in the next episode. But with that, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for part 2 because we have so many other amazing strategies for you to actually overcome those fears, those doubts, those excuses that keep us from achieving our highest calling. So I'm really excited. Make sure to give this episode a big thumbs up. Share it with your friends. You guys are sharing these episodes and they're getting views and we're like, what? This is a new thing. I'm so excited. Yeah. So the more you can be on mission with us to help 10,000 online entrepreneurs double their business in the next couple of years, the better. So if there's someone who needs to hear this message today in your life, do not hesitate. Send it to them. We'd love to have a new member to our little familia here on the podcast. And we will see you in the next one. Let us know also in the comments, what was your biggest takeaway from this episode? We'd love to use it in the next one. So we love you. We'll see you in part 2. Bye for now.